You don't know me anymore.
Welcome, everyone. So the last people are walking in, and we are not starting quite yet. But I would like to ask you all, you are sitting so far away. Could you come a bit more to the front? Because today is not only about celebrating and about giving you presentations and showing you things, but we would also like to have a conversation today. So it would be very nice if you come a little closer so we can have a talk. Everyone in the back, please come have a seat here in the middle, in the front. We'll give you some time, some music. No movement at all, and that when we are doing a conference about dance. No movement at all.
I find my fence. I thought you had a clue. You walk until you find.
Great, here in the middle are also some seats. The camera will go over you, no worries. Thank you so much, everyone, for doing this little chair dance with me.
You think you're running away?
So time to head off. Welcome, everyone. On behalf of Omscholing Dansers Nederlands at this symposium, my name is Tamara Markus. I'm your moderator and your host today. Talking about omscholing, maybe I have to point that out. I am Dutch myself, and we are doing this, of course, in English. So I ask people from omscholing, how do you say omscholing in English? Retraining scheme. What else did we have? ODN, of course, in short, Omscholing Dansers Nederland, ODN. We had career transition. We had several options. But along the way, we sort of discovered that everyone, even when having a conversation in English, is using omscholing. So that's probably the thing you will hear most today, but we will also have it about, we will talk about career transitions and about ODN. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about second careers. And we will look at people who had a second career after their dance career, but we will also talk about what a career is in general. We will see some performances, and it's also time to say goodbye, not only to dance careers, but more on that later. I want to start with a little Oprah Winfrey moment, because on your chair, you all found a book. And that is a gift to you all. If it wasn't on your chair, you were sitting too far to the back. So thank you for coming forward. And the book you have there is a photo book of Goran Turnček, who chose a career of photographer already during his dancing career. And the book in your hands reveals the lives of ex-dancers after their dance careers, and through photos, their bodies, once their instruments, are captured in their new professions. The project explores how their former careers influence their current lives and also their movements. It symbolizes their journey from dancer to a new identity, highlighting how they have integrated their past into their present. And with the theme of today, transferable skills, that is what we will be talking about. And career transitions are universal. But today we will use the stories of dancers to point out the aspect of career switches. How do you use the work or the education you had before in a new career? So you know a bit who I am and what we're going to talk about today, but I'm also curious who you are. Who of you here in the audience, maybe I can even have a little more light, I don't know. Who of you here in the audience is a professional dancer at the moment? Can I see hands? Some say so, we'll get back to that. Yeah. Okay. Who of you is an ex-dancer, a former dancer? Also, quite a lot. Who of you is doing something else within the performing arts? Something else than dancing? And who of you here works outside of the performing arts? Also interesting, eh? Just, what do you do outside of performing arts?
I'm a public speaking consultant.
Public speaking consultant. We had some hands here who is from outside of performing arts.
I'm a judge.
I'm a judge, okay, interesting.
feel some pressure now.
You feel some pressure?
A judge, a public speaking.
Yeah, it's an interesting field. Who else is from outside of performing arts? What do you do? HR. HR? Okay, I'm also curious about what...
Retired mayor.
A retired mayor?
Yes.
Mayor, welcome. And who of you who is not a dancer and not a former dancer, so it can also be in the cultural field, made a career transition in their lives? So what kind of transition did you make? From what to what?
I've been a lawyer before and now I'm in HR.
A lawyer and now in HR. And over here?
Dancer executive director.
Dancer executive director. And what was your previous career?
As a dancer,
Oh, you were a dancer.
professional dancer, and then a choreographer, and then executive director.
Dancer, choreographer, executive director. Very interesting. Someone else who started sort of a new career is the director of Omscholing Dansers Nederland, Brandon O'Dell. Please come out here. I will hand you the microphone.
Hi, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here this afternoon. We're competing with the sun, but yeah, it's bright in here too, so let's enjoy.
It's nice and cool here also.
Yeah,
eh?
exactly.
You actually just started on the 1st of March
Exactly.
as a director of Omscholing Dansers Nederland.
Exactly, yeah.
What is your first impression?
Yeah, my first impression is really that it's like coming home. We talked about it just before the start of this, the program, and being around people from the performing arts, and especially being around dancers, it's such a welcome place to be, and it feels like coming home after 12 years. So I'm glad to be back, and there's also some exciting things happening at the Omscholing.
Okay,
And,
you
yeah.
are making a little bridge there. That's very
what I
nice.
was doing, you know. Keep the
because
story moving along.
yes, there is a transition going on
Yeah.
at Omscholing Dansers Nederland. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so since the 1st of January this year, Omscholing Dans Nederland and Social Fonds Podiumkunsten is one organization. And that new organization is het Loopbaanontwikkelingsfonds Podiumkunsten, of LOF Podiumkunsten. And it really creates a center for people in the performing arts, for career development and career transition, a place where dancers can come, but also a place where anyone who works in the performing arts who is interested in lifelong learning or going deeper into their professional life and their professional development. But it also supports organizations across the performing arts to ensure that we in the Netherlands and in the performing arts, we stay innovative, that we stay attractive to new talent, and that we keep the talent that we do have in the performing arts from going somewhere else. So it's a really exciting time for the Omscholing Fund and for the Social Funds Podiumkunsten.
Why did you decide to collaborate? Because first it were two separate organizations. What was the reason to bring this together?
Yeah, well, it's good that you say that they were two separate organizations, because it's really important that everyone understands that they are two separate funds, and that will stay. So there's no crossover in that, and they're very sort of separate rules, regulations, and how they operate. But what we do by bringing them together is we create a center where we can share best practice, where we can share knowledge, where we're much more flexible, and where we can be much more reactive to what we hear happening in the podiumkunst, in the performing arts in general in the Netherlands. So I think that's the biggest profit that we're going to get out of one organization is really like learning from each other.
Not inventing it yourself, but sharing the knowledge that is there.
Exactly. So many of the organizations that I've talked to who are outside of dance, they're really curious about our omscholing, how it works, how does it support people. And one of the things that I realized only in the first, I've been doing this for 4 months, and what I've realized is that so many people don't really realize the whole journey that it takes to create a career transition. So already the preparation, that first time, in my experience, that first time that I spoke with Paul about maybe someday I might stop dancing, and to just accept that that's coming down on the horizon, and until all the way to here, let's say, 15 years later, is a real journey that you make.
So what happened during this? Because, you were a dancer once too.
Yeah.
And you did your omscholing with Paul as your partner in conversation,
exactly,
I think.
Yes.
So what was your trajectory?
Yeah, so in the Netherlands, I danced at Danceworks Rotterdam and at Scapino. There's some other people from Scapino here too, so old colleagues. Really nice to see everyone. And I started out, I wanted to go to law school. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to go to law school when I finish dance. And then I sat in on a law class. And I thought, nope, okay, next.
What made it that you thought, oh no, this is not my thing?
I think I had this idea of what law would be from television.
Like
sort of
presenting.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And then, after one class, I was like, no, this is something else. And it's really interesting, but it's not really where I'm headed. So then I thought, with conversations with Paul, really thought about, okay, what is it that I want to do? What is it that I want to be? And how do I want to get there? And I ended up studying business administration. And so I got an MBA at Cambridge University, and then worked for 10 years in global health, and then back in the performing arts as of the 1st of March.
Yeah. And you decided together with your team that it was time for a symposium. What was the reason? Why are we here today?
Well, I think, obviously, we're here to celebrate the sort of legacy that we're all carrying forward, that Paul's created, and to really commit to continuing the work that he started. But it's also just nice timing to say we're there. It's a new center. The two funds coming together, the two programs coming together, create something new, and it's nice to share that with all of you, so you know where to find us, and you know why you may want to find us, and what we can do to support the sector.
And at the end of the afternoon, if all of these people go home again into the sun, sitting on a boat or whatever, what do you hope they will take away from today, from this afternoon?
Yeah, I think two things. I think what I just said, that all of you will tell your friends where to find us and what we're doing, so that we get the word out. I think that's the very practical side. And then there's a wish for all of us here to understand what it is to make professional development and really to make transitions in your career and what that takes. And that if we all learn a little bit of something deeper and take that home with us, then I'll be really happy with how we've done it today.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
let's hope for that. Thank you very much,
Thank
Ben
you,
and
Tamara.
Odell. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, as I said before, we will look at some examples of people in their omscholing or who already have that behind them. We're going to listen to some stories. If you start a new career, first you need to discover what you want to do. Maybe you are going to a law class or whatever. We're going to listen to Heather Ware. She danced for 14 years at Line Urbana. In 2010, she won the VSCD Swan, which is a very prestigious dance award, for Best Dance Performance. And she tells you a little bit about this process.
I think one of the things, even very early on, that excited me about dance as a career is the fact that, generally speaking, it stops. I definitely went through a moment in time where I started to be a bit mad at dance, that I wasn't bored with it. I actually felt like I want to be done, but there's so much more learning available in it. I started conversations initially with Lieke at Omscholing Fonds. We really focused on what are my fascinations with dance, and actually how are those fascinations with dance applicable to just being fascinations with the world in general. I started to move towards teaching as well. So I started to really connect with that idea that you're sharing information and you're with people the first time that they experience something. I recognized that the one thing that I really missed was that it was all indoors. I want to be outdoors and I want to be in the mountains, and I want to be busy with movement, and I want to be busy with movement and people. And I want to be busy with movement and people outdoors. My retraining, specifically in the past 2 years, has been, I will say, aimed at helping other people move safely through the backcountry, through the mountains. In the summer, I'm working as a hiking guide, and that's just starting out right now. And then I did a series of avalanche operations training courses. So this is studying snow, where and how it will move, and again, how to move within this, how we can move within this safely. And then also working as a downhill ski instructor. Which again fascinated me because I'm a movement nerd. Sliding on snow for the first time is really scary for a lot of people. Being with people at that moment that they experience something that they might not experience if you're not there was really something that I connected with. I think one of the things that I've noticed in this development that I've been doing over 2 years now is that I haven't stopped dancing. And I don't feel that I had to leave dance behind me. I could talk for a long time about how much I value the organization and how much I value the work that the organization does. It places weight and value on dance as a career. In my case, it has offered up the opportunity for experimentation, the probing to look beyond what it is that you already know, to recognize the value in what it is that you know, and to see different ways that this value can shift and web out into the world. I couldn't be more grateful for it, actually.
Heather Ware, who is in Canada at the moment, so couldn't be here live with us on stage. But another story, and also another period in time, that is the one of Alberto Villanueva, who is here today. Hello, Alberto.
Tamara.
And yeah, we just listened to Heather telling about how you discover what you want to do, what you liked about dance and everything. You are already in a different time zone, which is quite a special moment because you are in the middle of your week of the last performances of your dance career.
Yeah, correct.
And I spoke to you last week. How is that? How does it feel?
It feels like a complete roller coaster, I have to say. We started Thursday, and I think that you keep on working with the company and you keep on doing your show, so you are not realizing. And then last week, suddenly, I had a lot of messages that they were coming in. My family came all the way from Spain with friends, and suddenly you have like the full audience. And the first thing that came to me was like, nervous. I haven't been nervous for a performance in a very long time, and it was like, wow, what's happening? It's like my first time again. Everyone was so excited to see me that it was a bit like, oof.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of emotions working at once, and I haven't had the time yet to process them. I'm still in the mountain.
And when is your last performance?
That's going to be this Saturday.
This Saturday?
Yeah.
Are there still tickets available?
I think so.
Where
not many. It's going
where
to be
will
in
it be?
Apeldoorn.
What theater, what performance?
In Apeldoorn.
In Apeldoorn. Yeah. Okay, and how are you looking forward to that last show?
Yeah, I'm looking very much forward to share one more time the piece that I'm doing. It's quite special. It's Bon Appetit, and I'm doing that a very long solo, which is very physical, and it always brings you to the emotion. And it's really about sacrifice. I literally sacrifice myself in front of the audience, and it's very powerful because when I turn around, I always have the company, and it feels like, wow, I'm carrying the company one more time, and that's such a privilege.
Yeah. The company, that is Intro Dance.
Yeah.
You have been dancing there for 13 years. And at what age did you start at Intro Dance?
I think I was 21. Rule is there, maybe he corrects me. I think I was 21, I was very young.
And can I ask you, it's maybe a bit impolite, but what is your age now?
I'm 34.
That is still quite young for a dancer to end this career. What is your reason to find a new career now?
The reason was also a little bit for myself and preparing towards the second career. I had very clear since a young age also dancing what I wanted to do next. And I also said, wow, first of all, I don't want to arrive to that stage to the moment that I need like 2 painkillers to dance. And that I've seen my body going down. I wanted to stop in a high level for myself. I always promised to myself that. And the second one was that I also want to be a very good marketeer. That's what I'm going to do. And I also thought like, I also need to put a serial and some effort into it. So I need to keep some energy for that to learn it. So I wanted to stop young so that I can also put a lot of energy.
Put a lot of energy in your new career.
Yeah.
And you said, I already knew from quite a young age that marketing was the way to go for me.
Yeah.
Why was that?
But I think that I just like to connect and talk a lot with people. Everyone that knows me knows that I'm very sociable. And yeah, and I started to check also different things. And I liked it a lot, of course, dance. And I always had things like, oh, this could be done differently. And as maybe some of my colleagues here, dancers, they know, sometimes with dance, it's just something very difficult to sell, and to sell it in a way that it doesn't become cheap. You dedicate so many hours to your art form, you refine it, and you have it so subtle that also you want that sometimes when they are going to sell it, they do it with the same subtlety. So I hope I can keep that.
And you already have a job, right, as a
Yes, I
marketeer?
do.
What are you going to do?
Now, I've been working, first of all, for the homeschooling, so that has been like amazing time. And now I'm going to be joining the intro dance in the marketing team. So, yeah.
I think, is there someone here from Intro Dance, by the way? Are you happy with him in the team, in the marketing team? Great choice, I think. Thank you very much, Alberto, for sharing your story.
Thanks to you.
Yeah, what do you see ahead of you in terms of marketing career?
Well, I don't know very much yet because I've been like really focused in the last time again into my dancing because I was during the last 2 years busy trying so many things and I wanted to know for sure. So now I'm back into the dancing and I want to take a long break this summer and then come back. I have, of course, thousands of ideas. My brain is always too creative. So I always need people that puts me on the break. But I already had many discussions with the marketing manager and we are in one line and I hope I can develop them after the summer.
Yeah. To point out, you have also been supporting omscholing dancers on the marketing side.
Of course.
And today is also your last day at omscholing dancers. Also, I don't know if everyone knows it, but you have been organizing this whole afternoon, this symposium. You have been running around just before heading up. So can I have a huge applause for Alberto Villanueva.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. And of course, he goes straight into organizing again, because we also have a symposium to run. We are going to look at some dance, of course, on a day like this. And Martha Graham once said, a dancer dies twice. Once when they stop dancing, and this first death is more painful. It still touches me. We're going to have a look at Intro Dance, La Morte del Cigno, choreographed by Mauro de Candia, which is, of course, a translation for the dying swan. But unlike the fragile, vulnerable bird from the original choreography, Mauro's dying swan is a proud creature that attempts to carve its path to freedom with immense animalistic strength, passion, and grace. Let's have a look at Yildiz Roshanali. Gilles Rochinario, and some flowers for you. Thank you so much. Career transitions are universal. It doesn't only happen to dancers. And someone who knows everything about that is Jos Akkermans. He's Associate Professor of Sustainable Careers and Organizational Behavior at the School of Business and Economics at de Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam. Please, Jos Akkermans. Jos, before I give the word to you, I just wanted to point out, okay, you're from the scientific world, of course,
Yes.
From the academic world.
I forgot to wear my lab coat, I'm sorry.
Yeah, because you had quite a special moment just before you ended up here, because there's maybe a similarity when it comes to academics and dance. There's a very strong hierarchy, and you want to get a higher level every time. What is happening to you next Monday?
Next Monday, I will officially be a full professor.
A full professor. So we don't have a full professor here yet, but he will be very soon. And how does that make you feel?
Relieved, happy. And this morning, I went to a place here nearby to take my measures for my personal gown. So that was a very, very special. So this is a really special day, actually.
It's a very special day.
Yes.
And you know everything about sustainable careers from maybe another perspective. Word is to Jos Akkermans.
Thank you very much. Now, I still have to earn that, right? Today is, I mean, it's really a special day for me because, not just because of my gown fitting stuff, but when Brandon reached out to me and said, we're going to do the symposium, I heard you know everything about careers. Do you want to give a talk? I was immediately like, yes. I mean, I do quite some talks. I have to say no more often nowadays. Otherwise, I do no research and I have nothing to speak about. But dancing has been very special and important to me throughout my life as well. And I don't think you knew that when you invited me. And by no means anywhere close to professional level. But I was a dancing teacher for 15 years in ballroom and Latin American dancing, salsa. So when I started dancing at like age 12, I thought, this is not for me, but you know, I like this girl and she was dancing, so I was gonna go along. And then they all stopped after 2 years and I stayed for 20 years, working there for 15 years alongside my studies, my PhD, my work at university. So dancing has a very special place in my heart. And if I can contribute even this today to the current dancers, the past dancers, the HR people working with dancers, then that would be really, really important to me. So I hope I can make that work. I want to start with a little story. And it's about my brother, who's on the right-hand side, and my sister, who's in the middle. Guess who the cute one on the left is? Right? We look like a bit of a mafia gang, right? Really serious. This is a very old picture. I want to talk a bit about my brother and sister because of the topic I'm going to speak of today, which is sustainable careers and career transitions. So let's start with my brother. My brother is 5 years older than I am. He's a very smart guy, but he never liked learning. When he was in high school, he could have passed anything he wanted to, but he was just not very motivated to study. So my parents constantly had to say, go study, go study, go study. And then in his 5th year, when he had to do his exams, he flunked his exams. The year after he passed, he decided not to go to any higher vocational education. He did intermediate vocational education, so for the Dutch people here, MBO, which he passed without even trying. And then he started working for a municipality doing financial administrative stuff, and he's still there. Kind of boring. He's so much potential, never made true on his potential. Utter failure. He knows I'm saying this about him, by the way, yeah. Yeah. No, I was there last Saturday, and he knows this, so don't worry. There's no family argument. Then there's my sister. She also knows that I'm speaking about her. Polar opposite story. She is the epitome of lifelong learning. She's actually also a dancer. So she did higher vocational sports education, so she's a teacher. in special needs education, and she specialized in dancing. So in the small place where we live, she set up this kind of dancing school, and it's become really huge. Last Saturday, they even had the national championships in Rotterdam, in Ahoy. So she's been very successful with that. After she passed as best of class, she started developing all kinds of healthy food programs at school, healthy movement programs. You know, she has 4 kids, but who cares? She did a professional master's in a year and a half, where most people take 3 years. Now they asked her to stay on to supervise new students in their thesis because she's awesome. She is, check, perfect. I assume you hear a tiny little bit of irony or even cynicism in my voice. And this is the reason. This utter failure story, this is how society tends to look at how we navigate our careers, right? If you're smart, you need to do university. You need to go, so he did a financial education. He should have gone to the big 4, EY, KPMG, Deloitte, you name it. He should have been rich, fancy suit, expensive car. But that is not who my brother is. If he would have gone to one of those companies, he would have been so incredibly unhappy that he would have probably burnt out within a few months. And conversely, for my sister, it just fit her motivations. She was excited to learn new things. She is this proactive person who takes up new things and just thinks, let's do something new, let's do something new. So both of them have done exactly what fits them, what makes them happy in their lives. And I'm not saying this is an easy story of, whatever you do, be proactive, craft everything and you'll be fine. Because they've both had a lot of setbacks, especially my brother with a divorce and a very bad things going on. But he managed to find a career that makes him happy, that makes him be the father he wants to be for his kids, while still doing the work that he considers fine, because he wants to spend more time on his life and on his family outside of work. So I think both of their careers are very sustainable. And I think this societal definition of utter failure versus perfect is complete nonsense. And I think if there's one thing that all of you, I hope you remember, and I know this sounds easier than it is, but whatever you do after your dancing career, and I'm going to get to dancing career in a few minutes, because actually I don't agree with calling it a dancing career, but bear with me. There is no perfect path. There is no idealized, this is what you should do after dancing. You should try to find something that is good for you. Will it ever compare to what you're doing now? Who knows? Maybe you should stop comparing, because this is so special and so specific, and you're so passionate about this that probably nothing's going to compare, right? But if you stop comparing it to this and start thinking about, look at the stories we just heard, Brandon's story, Alberto's story. It's beautiful. None of them are sitting depressed under a bridge, doing nothing with their lives. They're doing fun stuff that they're enjoying. So a lot is possible, but don't care too much about what society tells you, because a lot of it is just this very normative view of what a career should be. In Dutch, we have 2 words for career. We have carrière and loopbaan. I always use the second because the word carrière, and also career in that sense, but English only has one. Carrière comes from the French word for horse racing. So it's about fast, competitive, be there as first. Loopbaan is a much more neutral word of, it's just a series of everything you do in your life that's work-related, which I like much more because that's what a career is about. Not about being the fastest, the best. It's about doing things that allow you to find some degree of happiness, health, and productivity across your life. And that's essentially what a sustainable career is. So I'll get back to that later on, because I also have some models and definitions to prove that I'm a scientist. All right, let's go a few steps back and define what a career is, because we all know this word, we all speak about it. And if you go online, and I always used to say, if you search on Google Images, but nowadays I should just say, if you have some kind of prompt in ChatGPT, show me what a career looks like, you will still get thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of pictures of ladders. People climbing onto ladders, people running, people shoving each other off ladders, people finding keyholes at the top of ladders. There are even pictures of ladders going all the way into heaven. It's beautiful. This idea, we even have metaphors for it, right? The career ladder is a very common metaphor for moving up in a company, for example. So this is so ingrained in our thinking of careers that we tend to think about careers as very predictable, hierarchical, upward things. There is a very clear point at which you start, usually after you graduate from some kind of educational program, or when you think, no, I am going to be a dancer, this is what I'm going to do now. And then the rest of it is following the same path, maybe sometimes taking a step sideways or up, but it's always this one path. It's quite predictable, very structured and hierarchical. And then hopefully, if you're lucky and you're successful, you find the key. So how about a career in dancing? I mean, if it ends, what's left in life, right? This is one of those special career paths, I think, where this is not just going from a job as an associate professor to a full professor. This is not something as I teach for this school in this village and now I'm going to switch to another school in another village. Those are career transitions as well. But transitioning from a role as a professional dancer to something entirely different, that's huge, right? That requires you to change everything, basically, in your identity, in your skills, in your activities. And so I found this picture for today, and I thought, yeah, this kind of signifies, I think, how many people are dreading this moment. And this is honestly, I'm going a bit off topic now, but I do want to say this. This is why I'm so happy that omscholing is there. It's so good that there's a group dedicated to providing support to help you, or you for the ones who are going to do it, or any dancer, to navigate this transition successfully. So I think it's wonderful that you're there, and I hope you will always stay, because it's very valuable. All right, so this is the depressing part. You're all gonna fall down off a cliff, and this is the end. And then you're gonna lie there. Maybe we should take a picture at the end with it. No. Now we're going away from the depression and on towards the positive stuff. So here's one thing. This whole ladder metaphor of a career, it does not apply to careers anymore. I don't know why we're still using it. Please, if you're HR, now put your hands over your ears, because I'm going to say something nasty about HR. There are so many HR people, the ones who should know this, who are still drawing ladders when we're talking about career systems in organizations. It drives me crazy. For some people, this ladder still applies, true, but for most, actually in academia is one of the few businesses, well, not a business, one of the few kind of worlds, professional worlds, where this ladder still applies, where you go from PhD to postdoc to assistant prof to associate prof to full prof. But in most careers, in most fields, in most disciplines, this whole ladder phenomenon, it doesn't really exist anymore. Sure, there are promotions. Sure, if you go to one of the big four, you want to be partner in 10 years or whatever. But there's much more flexibility and dynamism in careers nowadays, where people switch jobs much more often. Not this huge transition maybe from dancer to something entirely different. But definitely all kinds of transitions within organizations, between different fields even. And so this idea of, I've made this choice once, this is it, is much less permanent nowadays. I always tell my students when they say, I don't know what to do because, it's so stressful and I have to find that dream job, I tell them, don't look for the dream job. It doesn't even matter if you end up in your first job and it's horrible, because at least you're going to learn from it that this is not what fits you. This is not what you like. You're young. You have like 40 years of working life left. It's fine to experiment, to find out. I think you already said it in the previous part, right? You need to experiment a bit. Okay, here's part one of my academic text. I'm going to provide some definitions. So if we define a career, and here I get back to this point of, I don't agree with the term a dancing career. There's a very old definition that we still use in research, and the definition is very straightforward. A career is the unfolding sequence of work-related experiences over time. In other words, from the point that you start working to the point that you stop working, everything you do in between that is work-related is part of your career. And the important implication of this definition is that whatever you do after dancing, it is not a new career, it is part of the same career. It is still you. You take everything with you that you're moving towards. It's not as if you're saying, here's my career as a dancer, goodbye, now I'm going to be a consultant, or now I'm going to be a teacher, and everything is gone. It is the same career. It is a new job, or a new profession, or in this case, probably a new identity in many ways, but it is still the same career. And I'm emphasizing this because I think it's really important that you don't have to forget everything that you're doing. It's not as if you have to leave everything behind. It always remains a part of who you are. I think in many ways it can even help you. I'll get to that in a bit, but you know, everything is part of that same career narrative, that same career story that starts very young and that ends, well, later and later because we have to work so long. So that means if we define this as a career, we can define career success, so what makes you successful, as basically any accomplishments or desirable outcomes over time. So the career is everything you do over time. Success is anything you achieve that is desirable over time in that career, within those work experiences. And the funny thing is that we've seen a big change also in how people think about career success over the past few decades, where, and this kind of coincides with leaving behind the ladder metaphor. So we used to think very much about objective career success. We call it objective career success because it's easy to compare people on this. It's quite easy to verify what it is, right? So for example, how much money do you make? How many promotions have you done? Or how many, very special solos have you gotten compared to other people? This is what you can compare. You can say, I had 3, you had 2, I am more successful. Then there's subjective career success. This is much more individualized, more psychological, so to speak, right? So subjective career success is about, do I feel successful? Am I happy with the progress that I've made regarding my career goals, my financial goals? Am I satisfied with my career as a whole? And what we're seeing, and here's my first model, and we're going to do a test at the end of the afternoon to see if you remember all of them. Otherwise, the price for admission is doubled, but you didn't know that. No, the reason I'm showing this is because if you look at the literature, we did this literature review where we looked at all the research done on career success in the past decades. And if you look at this, there's 2 interesting things about this table. One of them is the list of bold-faced words at the left side. These are all different kinds of indicators of what success could be. So it's not only about financial success. It's not only about advancing in your career, it's also about building meaningful interpersonal relationships. It's also about establishing a good balance between work and non-work, or work-life interface. It's also about mastering new things, developing yourself over time. These are all indicators of what success can be, right? And the other interesting thing here is if you go from left to right, you're going to see that in the early days, most research only focused more on the classic stuff, advancing, making money. And the farther we go to the right, the more you see that all these researchers have started to incorporate more and more aspects of career success. So not only are we starting to understand it more, but I think more and more we're seeing that these are all meaningful indicators of what it is to be successful. So success is not just being famous. Success is not just getting that one beautiful gig. Success can be many things. And it's also really important to think when you think about those future career steps, or when you think back to your dancing career and think where you're at now, what are the facets where you do feel successful? And maybe if there's 1 or 2 where you don't feel successful, there are enough others that do make you feel successful, right? So this is success. We're still talking about success, which is kind of this word of which can sound a bit normative, right? I'm successful, you're not. Now I want to talk a bit more about what it means to have a sustainable career. How am I doing in time, Tamara? All right, I'm going to speed up. I have this nasty habit to speak too much. But so a few years ago, me and 2 close friends and colleagues started to think about, if you look at the research in careers, a lot of it has focused on the individual as the only person responsible for their success. So basically it would be, Brandon, you want to be successful after dancing? Be proactive. Everything will be fine. Which is weird because we also, in every paper that we publish, we start this paper with, careers are so much more complicated and difficult and dynamic and challenging. And so we were like, how is this possible, that careers are more difficult than ever? And at the same time we're saying, yeah, no, you'll be fine. Just, craft some stuff and you'll be successful. So we said we need to think about this in a more holistic way. We need to think about this in a more systemic way because careers are not isolated to a single person. Careers are always part of a larger ecosystem, so to speak. And so one of my personal career highlights, I'm creative here, but not very creative with my hands. But this figure I created, isn't it wonderful? this is the conceptual model that we've been using when we speak about sustainable careers. And I'm going to talk you through it briefly because I do want to get to the end where I have some tips and tricks. So what we say here on the left-hand side, you see three words: person, context, and time. I think it's really important that we emphasize that, yes, it starts with you. If you want to be successful or have a sustainable career after dancing, you're going to have to work on that. If you don't, no one else will do it for you because it's your career, right? There are as many people here as careers. If all of you would work for omscholing, we could say, you know, there's one employer, but still there is as many careers as individuals. So if you don't do it, probably no one else will do it. But context matters. As I said, if you're a consultant who wants to become a teacher, okay, so that means you have to get some new skills. That means that your job will change. Maybe the pacing will change, the working times will change, the salary will definitely change. Still doable. If you go from assistant to associate professor at the university, that's a nice bit of prestige, but still doable. But if you're a dancer who's going to do something entirely different, that's a very different type of career transition, right? So just saying to everyone, be proactive, is very easy for someone who just has a new role within the same organization versus someone who has to basically reinvent themselves. It also means that, cultural background, for example, or the country you're from can have meaningful differences in how you navigate your career. I often speak to some colleagues from China, and I know a few years ago someone told me, all you people in the US and Western Europe, you emphasize this individual excellence. You need to stand out and show you're better than the rest. If you do that in China, you'll not be very successful because they have this golden mean principle where you have to fit in, take care of the group. Right? So if I do what makes me successful here in China, I will not be very successful. But if they do here what they would do there, they will be overlooked here. So it's a very contextual perspective where you have to be aware, what are the norms, what are the scripts? I think in dancing there are very clear scripts on what you should do, who you should know, how you should get there. But maybe in the future career path that you're going to pursue, that's much less the case. That's important to realize because there might be different rules and different scripts or not to follow. And then, of course, time matters. I mean, when we're small kids, everyone wants to be a teacher. So many of us don't do it, right? Because our motivations change, because we change, because the world changes. Maybe if the new government decides to cut all the funding, omscholing will cease to exist. I don't hope that it happens, but it's something that could happen, right? And then it changes over time. We have it now, we don't have it in 5 years. What's going to happen to those dancers? So the ones who can use their services are probably better off than the ones who have to fend all by themselves. So person, context, time. And then I already mentioned that happiness, health, and productivity. We believe that it's not just about being excellent at what you do. Of course, you have to be good at what you do, whatever you decide to do, but it's also about doing something you like and something you can continue doing over time, right? Because if you're a star performer, whatever you're going to do, you work 80, 90 hours a week, and after a few months, you're still the star performer, but you burn out, because you cannot keep it up, that's not very sustainable. Conversely, if you jump out of bed every morning thinking, yes, I can go to work, and you suck at what you do, you get fired. That is not very sustainable either. So it's about the balance between the three, happiness, health, and productivity. And I'm going to show one more model. This you don't have to remember. The only reason I'm showing this to you is this is a model. So we did another review. I'm doing a lot of reviews. This is a review of career transitions research. And I think the valuable thing in this model, this is why I'm just showing off, but I'm making up a story of why this is meaningful to you, is if you look here, we grouped a lot of these factors. So we looked at hundreds of studies and saw what matters if you're going to do a career transition in the preparation phase, the actual transition phase, and the after phase. So once you socialize into a new role. And there's a lot of contextual things that you cannot influence, but there are also many, many things that you can influence as an individual, which can help you to navigate such a career transition successfully or sustainably. For example, we do know from research there's all kinds of competencies that you can train that can help you to actually be more successful in a new career path, whatever you do. And that brings me to this slide, and this is the most important one. I thought, how can I wrap this up in a kind of more concrete, meaningful, helpful way? So I have 4 tips, and I'm going to do it very fast. Otherwise, I'm in a fight with Tamara, and I'm going to lose that. I think one thing that I really want to emphasize is that the core idea of sustainable careers is person-career fit. Finding a career path that fits with your values, your talents, your motivation. And so this is probably not something you're going to find immediately. Maybe you're lucky, maybe you're going to find some kind of new dream job. Most of you will probably have to figure it out along the way, and that is perfectly fine. There's enough challenges ahead of you. Don't make them even worse. Maybe you are going to do something that you really dislike. Okay, at least you learned you dislike it, right? Or maybe you are going to find something that you really like. Wonderful. But allow yourself that room. You can experiment. Of course, again, this sounds easier than it is. If you have to support yourself financially, you cannot just get fired all the time or be without a job all the time. But the basic principle is it's really important to try and find something, not that compares to what you do now, because it's never going to do that, but something that also fits with you. Maybe in a very different way. If there's one thing that research agrees on, there's also a lot of research on elite athletes, which is different than a dancer, but it's quite similar in the sense that, professional athletes, usually around their early 30s, they have to retire from that part of their career and do something entirely different. There's one finding across all these studies that's very evident, is that if you cling to your identity as an elite athlete, that's bad for whatever comes afterwards. If you cannot let go of, I'm a dancer, I'm a dancer, I'm a dancer, you're never going to be successful in something new because you're always going to think, yeah, but I'm a dancer. And I was really among the very best in what I did. And it's going to take time to get to that level of skill and seniority in whatever you do afterwards. And so clinging to the identity of, I'm a dancer, will likely hinder you in navigating successfully to something else. So this is something to be aware of. And again, this sounds so easy, and I know it's not. But research convincingly shows that it doesn't help. Conversely, there's so much that does help. You have so many meaningful and important skills for any job, right? You have to persevere and be so resilient. I mean, there's physical toll, there's a mental toll, there's a high competition. You have to work so much. All of those things, if you successfully navigated those challenges, those are all transferable skills that are important for virtually any job you can think of. So think about that as well. Not just what you'll lose after dancing, but what you can take with you and what will make you a good teacher or a good marketeer or a good whatever. And then finally, and then I'll wrap up, don't try to do what you think you should do, but try to find something, and I hope omscholing will be able to also help you with that. Try to find something that allows your career to be sustainable or as sustainable as possible. Not just what other people say you should do, but what you feel could make you happy and healthy and productive. Thank you very much.
Jos Akkermans, please stay here. We have a few minutes left, and I will not start a fight with you, that's a promise. Thank you so much for these insights. I can imagine that there are maybe also some questions in the audience. While we have someone here who actually did research, like for instance, the dancing thing, like identifying yourself being a dancer. I think that some people do that here because it's logical and it also has benefits, but it's interesting that the research shows that it's maybe not so beneficial. Are there any questions in the audience? I see people writing and taking pictures, so is there a way also, if the picture wasn't clear, that we can we get these sheets?
Sure.
We will find you all.
So we're talking about identity and being able to let things go and really be in the moment of where you are. But in research, are there hacks of ways to do that, or ways in which you can remind yourself of letting go of the things that don't fit anymore?
Well, you know, as researchers, we're always good at pointing out problems, maybe not so much at finding solutions. No, I mean, I think one of the things is awareness is already one. So what we call it lingering identity. So the identity that kind of lingers when you do something new. And not just in elite athletes, but also, for example, a few years ago, there's this article on former military personnel that continue to identify themselves as we are the military, you are just civilians. And then it becomes much more difficult to fit into anything you do with those civilians because they're not you. And they also see you as not them. And so I think the same applies to dancing. If you continue to think yourself as I am the dancer and I was really good at dancing and that's who I am, you're never really going to fit in with the non-dancers because they don't know that world. And so I think the awareness and just being open to not already judging like, oh, they're not going to know what I'm about anyway, or, you know, this can never compare. If that's the way to go into a new adventure, I would say it's doomed to fail. And again, I know I make it sound easy, but constant reminders of, okay, so now again I'm thinking I'm the dancer. Maybe I should try to change it a bit and see. But it also takes time, right? You cannot just flip a switch and say, okay, I'm done. So Alberto on Saturday evening, he walks out and says, no, I'm not a dancer anymore. That's probably not going to happen, no.
Yeah. I think I saw a hand over here somewhere. Yeah.
Someone behind me.
Oh, I thought I saw your hand as well. Yeah, yeah.
Hi, thank you for your talk. I really enjoyed it. People often talk about your values being the North Star for guiding you on what to move in. So my career has been somewhat squiggly, as you have described. So it's really, I feel seen. Let's put it that way. How do you know what something so innate? How can you bring that out so that you become conscious of that? I think that's what my question is.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, so values are so ingrained that they're sometimes difficult to make explicit. I mean, the easy answer would be speak to a career coach. You know, there are a lot of professionals that have tools that can help you find out what your values are. And some of the we're actually working on developing a new theory. I won't bore you with this, but some of the kind of classic models from the 1960s and 70s that can help you just classify yourself as this kind of worker or that kind of worker, or these are the jobs that would fulfill these values. Speaking about it with a professional and using those tools can really help to make them more explicit so that you can find what might fit you. I think above that, it's also just a matter of talking about it with people. Because if you talk about what makes you tick, people can often say, I see that you're starting to shine now, so this is something that matters to you. I think that's... I had a chat yesterday with a friend of mine, and she was talking about a lot of setbacks that she had in her personal life, and at some point she started talking about a new project that she's on, and her face started to brighten, and I immediately said, okay, you've done something that really fits you. I think sometimes it's difficult for yourself to see that because you're just going through the motions. And having someone to just say, hey, I see that this is really important to you. So maybe this is something I should take along with me. I think that's, I mean, talking with a professional or just with friends and family can help. But speaking of, I would say that's step one. Try to just make it explicit and explore. And take some time for it, because we often are so rushed, going from one thing to the next. Sitting down and taking some time to just think about this often helps as well. I hope that helps.
Was there another question here?
I don't know if it backtracks though. Oh.
Just go ahead. We have the time here to talk. We need to talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Just going back to I'm not a dancer thing. So it's like, I don't know, like how can that be such, like I have been dancing my whole life, but I would never then step outside to be like, I am a dancer, because it's just so integral to how I live my life or whatever. But then I guess I'm struggling to try and piece together that you're saying your first career as a dancer doesn't stop because you transition into something else. So then how are you then balancing to say, like, you know, I don't think I asked.
Yeah, no, I think so. You mean it sounds a bit contradictory that on the one hand I say the career is everything, so you take yourself with it, and then on the other hand I'm saying you should leave it behind because if it lingers too long it can hinder you. No, this is a very fair point. Thank you for calling me out on that.
Good question, absolutely.
I think it's not contradictory because I'm not saying that you should leave the identity behind because it's part of you, and a lot of the identity and a lot of the skills are helpful in whatever you do. But I think the key is to let enough of it behind to allow yourself to flourish in a new role. Because if you say, I'm 100% dancer, and you're still 95% dancer and maybe 5% consultant afterwards, that's a problem. But if you take, I don't know, 30, 40%, like I have those skills, I have all those experiences, you don't have to let them go, they can help you, as long as they're not kind of the dominant force that you compare everything to. I think that's where it gets problematic, where it overrules anything you do afterwards. Does that clarify a little bit?
It feels contradictory. I just want to do like a little test here. Who were the ex-dancers again, the former dancers in the audience? If someone asks you to introduce yourself, do you still say you're an ex-dancer?
No, absolutely not.
And how long ago did you quit dancing? Looking at Paul. 2019-20. How's that for you? Do you still introduce yourself as a former dancer? No. And how was that in the beginning years? Did you introduce yourself as a dancer?
No, but there is a loss of identity that you go through. I feel very strongly. I think I spent more time as a choreographer, and sometimes I wanted to quantify my new career.
Yeah.
But I was, because that's such a major part of your life, and when you leave it behind, you do have a sort of loss of identity that you have to work through.
Yeah, so maybe in the beginning it is helpful because that's what you have been doing. It's not like you were sitting on a couch for the first part of your life. You were a dancer, and that's what you're taking along with you. But maybe as soon as you start to collect new experiences in work, you start to identify as something else.
Yeah, so I think the experiences remain relevant, but the main identity should switch. I think that's maybe the difference. So the experiences and the identity are different, right? You are, now we're going to get philosophical, but you are not what you do, right? So all those, I think it's, I mean, if you would come to any HR person and say, I did nothing for 10 years, they're not going to hire you. But there's a lot of relevant skills in being a professional dancer. But it doesn't mean you primarily identify as a former dancer, even though you have those skills. Yeah. Am I there yet or still not? No, still not,
no,
right?
we have another question. We have some time.
Well, I'm in HR, and honestly, I'm really interested in the background of people, and not because it is about the skills or whatever, but it is also about the characteristics. So for me, it's very interesting if a dancer comes to me and I want to hire her or him. For me, it is important they have discipline, stamina, things like that. So they are able to, get to the limits, etc. Never give up, and that's so important for a new job. Mm. So I think that it would be a pity if you don't mention things like that. Mm.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
No, it makes sense. It's a tricky balance because, for example, there's some research among former entrepreneurs who go back to paid employment, and we actually see that a lot of them are at a disadvantage. So the recruiters have a bias against them because they're thinking you're an entrepreneur, so you're probably not going to stay for long, or you're not going to be able to listen to a boss. Exactly. So it's striking a bit of a tricky balance for those entrepreneurs. Like, should they emphasize it because it does make them more entrepreneurial and possibly more innovative, which is good for the company? But they can also think, yeah, you're probably just going to leave anyway, so it's bad for the company. I don't think there's a clear-cut answer yet, and the same would probably apply here, where, although of course here, I think as a former dancer, there's not like the downsides of having a reputation of that person would leave. I think there's mostly positives. If you manage to navigate that really competitive, challenging world successfully, what can you not do? I think, honestly.
Isn't there a little difference going on, like identifying towards yourself as a dancer, like I'm a dancer, that's what I do physical work, that's what I'm used to do. I haven't been used to doing things with my head. Or being a dancer and bringing that as a skill into a company and seeing what the skills. It's yes. like a psychological process of seeing you as something else than a dancer, or going to a job and saying, this is my experience and this is what can be beneficial in a new function.
Yes. Yeah. So that's what I was trying to say with experience, which is this is what I've done, this is how it can help me, versus identity, which is really I am this. And if the I am remains former dancer for a long time, I'm not saying you're not going to be successful, but it's going to be more difficult to really fit in to any new role.
Could I just clarify, because I said really quickly.
You can clarify.
Never say that I'm a dancer to anyone ever. I think I made a choice.
You made a specific choice not to say it anymore?
Actively tried to not present myself as a dancer.
And what was the reason you actively tried not to present yourself as a dancer?
I think it was a little bit this intuitive feeling of like, I need to change how others see me.
Yeah.
It's not, I don't need to change me because I am a dancer. But you know, I have this feeling that I will always have dance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I needed to change
Yeah.
the context and how people saw me.
So you had the feeling you had to change how other people looked at you, not as the former dancer or as the dancer. And why? What was the reason that you wanted them to not see you as a dancer anymore? Did you have the feeling that it wasn't very beneficial for you in job interviews or?
If I may?
Yes.
I think also as a dancer, it starts so young. The identification, it starts before any other career naturally would. And therefore, as you're making a transition for yourself to also have the confidence as you're building into that new path to say, okay, I can be more than what I allowed myself to be and what the company allowed me to be within that role as singularly a dancer.
Yeah. Does that make sense? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, sorry.
I had to change how I stood, literally, because I was too upright and too, like, in the presence of my body, and I just had to let my stomach go and relax a little bit. But
in order to breathe?
No, because it comes back to this idea of identity, and there's what we say to ourselves about ourselves, and there's what we say about us to others, but there's also what other people say to us about us, and there's the people who we associate with. And then we're literally, as this person said, we're literally being brought up. I started dancing at 4 years old. Mm-hmm. You know, there was so much I had to deprogram. But I do totally agree that once you let that identity label broaden, so stretch out of that comfort zone, once you do that, it's much easier.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe that's a wonderful way to say it. It's not abandoning the identity; it's stretching it or broadening it. And I really love what you said, where you said, "Well, I am not a dancer anymore, but I always have dancing with me." I think that's the perfect way to explain it. Actually, it's like you don't have to forget about dancing, but like you do say, I made a conscious choice. Like I'm not going to say I'm a dancer anymore, but I still have it with me. I think that's a really, really beautiful way of saying it. Thank you for clarifying my lack of clarification.
No, thank you very much. Jos will stay with us for a bit longer, so there will be time. I want to thank you all for sharing these stories and these perspectives, because I think it's very important. For you now, it's time to give this all some thought and to have a drink and a little bite, which is downstairs in the foyer. And then I will see you back at 3:30, and we will continue also with Jos. Thank you very much. Iedereen is terug. Volgens mij is dat een cue waarop wij door kunnen gaan. Ik beloofde al even, wij gaan zeker nog verder in gesprek. En daarbij wil ik ook zeker jullie input horen. Maar wij gaan hier beginnen met een panel. Sorry, yeah, let's switch to English. I'm so sorry. That's also a bit the dance world. We've been switching between English and Dutch all the time. Thank you very much for pointing that out. We promise that we will have a conversation for a bit more. And we will start with a panel, and I would love to have your input here as well. And we will do that with, of course, Jos Akkermans, who was already here, with Ingetje Wielenga, who was also a former dancer, and we will have a chat about that a bit more. Erik Pals, General Director of Scapino Ballet. And here we have Mirjam ter Linde, who is also a former dancer. Mirjam, before we head off with this panel and we will have a look at some themes, how was your career switch? How was your omscholing?
Yeah, so I danced for 10 years with different choreographers, freelance. But then there were 2 productions that were postponed for a year. And I didn't want to wait for that. I wanted to keep on growing. Felt ambitious. So then I visited the university and I saw all these young boys mostly. They were really eager and enthusiastic about studying. So then I studied computer science at the Universiteit van Amsterdam, followed by a Master of Information Sciences.
That's quite a difference from a cultural dance career. Why was that your first thing that you thought, that's where I need to be?
When I was in secondary school, I always liked the beta subjects, so mathematics and physics. I always liked those best. So, at a very young age, I wanted to be a dancer, but I also thought, like, maybe one day I will do a beta technical university studies. And also, I was programming a little bit as a 12-year-old, and I really liked it. So, and then also, while I was dancing, I built some computers, assembled computers, built some websites. So I really liked that.
So yeah, you were already doing that during this. I think some people want to have a website soon, so they will talk to you later. So you were already doing that while dancing, and then at the university, it was not as with Brandon, like, oh, this is not my thing. Visiting one class, you had a really good feeling visiting.
Yeah, and I also prepared myself properly. I went to the VU as well to have a look there. Meeloopdagen and the Universiteit van Amsterdam. So yeah, I had a good idea. But I also chose computer science and not artificial intelligence, for example, because then I hopefully have a chance for a job. Because I was afraid, I will be old when I start. So I really have to find something that I get a job with. And of course, it was really not a problem at all to find a job. So I could have been a little bit more relaxed about that.
So yeah, you were very worried if you could get it. And yeah, what were the responses when you started to find a job?
They were very welcoming. So you're a woman, IT, and there was no problem. And also, not the typical nerd, I was able to say something and...
A communicative computer person. Wonderful.
Yeah, this is it. So it was not a problem at all to find a job.
No. Ingetje, you have also been a dancer. Where did you dance? And can you tell me a bit about your omscholing?
Yeah, I was dancing in Switzerland and freelancing a lot. And then I wanted to move back to the Netherlands, and it was kind of hard to find jobs here. So then it actually naturally came to the thought of doing my omscholing. And I didn't know exactly what I wanted to study. I knew I wanted to study, so I went to the open day of the university, and I maybe ended up in the same law class as Brendan ended up. But for me, a world opened up, actually. I always thought that law was very black and white. And
because you visited law class like Brandon did, but you did like it.
I did like it. And yeah, for me, I discovered that law was not black and white, but that there was a lot of gray and a lot of nuances. And yeah, it was really interesting for me to discover how to navigate that world. So,
but are you still working in law at the moment?
I studied law, and then I did a master's in labor law. Then I worked 5 years as a lawyer, as a labor law lawyer. And then I figured out that actually that wasn't really the job that fitted me. And I had to search and navigate again what did fit. So I ended up in HR, and I work in a hospital now. And I mainly do the policies and employment conditions. So I work a lot with, actually the legal aspect in HR.
So yeah, but then in a different way. And why does this fit you better?
What I didn't like so much, I mean, it was interesting being a lawyer, but I didn't enjoy so much, the fighting aspects of it. I really noticed that I always wanted to, find good agreements or, bring the parties together. And as a lawyer, you're representing one party, and that was sometimes hard for me not to see the belangen, the needs, the interests. Thank you, of the other party. And I feel in my position now, I can actually use that as a quality instead of that it's hindering me.
Yeah. Before we continue, you were both freelancers.
Yep.
That is different from people that have a permanent contract in a company. What happened at omscholing? How did that work for you, being a freelancer?
Yeah, so I didn't do all the contributions, but Paul did help me a little bit. So, but I did save some money, and so it cost me a lot of money. But there was help, and also I wrote to foundations, fondsenwerving. So I got some money as well for my masters. So in the end, it worked out.
But it's like two directions. It's the money from omscholing, but it's also the support and the conversations and finding what you want to do.
Yeah, and that was really great.
Yeah. Erik, you are general director of Scapino, but you also had a career switch.
Yeah, in a way I did it reverse direction. I started as I was trained as a lawyer, and I studied business administration. And once I started practicing as a lawyer, within like 3-4 years, I decided to change because it didn't bring any joy, it didn't bring any satisfaction. And I was the neighbor of Jiri Kilian back then, and we spoke about not being happy about my job. And a few months later, he knocked on my door and he said, "We're looking for someone in management, and are you interested?" And that's how I made a change from being a lawyer to working in the cultural field. And I never regretted it 1 second. So yeah.
Here we see it's not a one-size-fits-all. What works for one person doesn't work for the other.
Exactly.
And the other way around. I collected some theses. And I'm curious about your opinion and also about your opinion. And the first one I have here is, I will ask it to you first, Ingetje. Dancers must accept a second career won't be as fun as dancing.
No, they should not accept that. They should accept that it's going to be different.
They should accept that it should be different,
yeah,
but
it is going to be different, but it should, it can also be fun.
As fun as dancing.
Yeah.
How is that for you?
I don't think it is as much fun. So dance was my passion, and it was very fulfilling. And what I'm doing now is nice, but it's not as great as dancing was.
No. How is that in the audience? What do you think? Dancers must accept that, that second career, and I know you disagree with me on that, will not be as fun as dancing. Who says, they should accept that? Okay, who says it can definitely be as fun as dancing, that second career? Also, that's like a careful hand. What is your opinion on it?
I think it can be equally fulfilling, certainly. And the fun aspects are tied to learning and figuring out new parts of yourself and learning about the vast world that is beyond dance. And I think as a dancer, you also enjoy that constant attitude towards learning more. And if you can take that into your continuing career, then it can be just as fun.
Thank you for that. Are you still a professional dancer, or are you in a new career? You don't perform anymore. You're in a new career. Okay.
So I also used to be a former dancer, and knowing that the Omscholingsfonds was there for me before I stopped dancing was fun for me, because I felt like a kid in a candy store. What can I do? I can do this, I can do that. I had all options open because I knew that there was the support of this, which is fantastic. So, and I started there, number one, open, being open. And ODN gave me the possibility to start from open. And from there, the fun happened. And I found my way and another calling. So fantastic, so thank you.
Are there people who are still dancing who have worries about that, or are already looking forward to a new career? Who are the dancers here? how's that for you? Like, do you look at a next career, or is it like, I will be dancing forever? It can be.
For me, it's different because I'm still performing, but also organize events. So I'm still also in the cultural field, but I love to perform as well. And I'm specialized in Balinese dance, so I can go on forever.
I'm also on stage still, and I'm in a situation between everybody who's made the break. I'm now talking to Paul and to Lika about the next step, which interesting. It's just Paul Markus is always encouraging me to go beyond the dance world. Be brave, and I'm not there yet, but because I love this world so much. I'm not attached to being a dancer. Before everybody tells me that, I'm not attached to be a dancer. I'm also teaching, so I was telling Brendan in the break, what I get from my students and what I get from a performance are the two things I love, the communication. There's that satisfaction of having communicated with something. So that for me is important. I am excited about where the future is going to be. I have the privilege now of being on stage. Age isn't a problem at the moment for some choreographers, and that's good. Yeah. Too much to say.
No, thank you. Jos, I also hear some different paces here, like people that are really going into a second career, but also doing things along your dance career. What is your opinion on that?
I think it's a good thing to do. I mean, if you can combine it, I can imagine that it's not possible for everyone. But I think there's an emerging trend now of what they call multiple job holding. So this is not specifically related to dancing, but it's people having paid job and then something else beside it, either another paid job or some kind of firm that they started as an entrepreneur, or doing some kind of gig work, for example. And there's quite some promise that it can, you talked about transferable skills at the beginning. This can also help you kind of find fulfillment in different roles. I think especially if you do this to kind of soften the blow of the transition, because you've already started doing some other things, it could really help that once this stops, like this picture I showed with the cliff, maybe you don't fall down as deeply because there's already another one that's starting to emerge. Yeah. So I can definitely see the value of doing that, yeah.
Yeah. You already mentioned transferable skills, and I also hear it here a bit like being open to learning new things, being used to developing, to explore new things. What are transferable skills in terms of dancers towards their ongoing career? Ingetje, what can be transferable skills in your opinion?
Yeah, I think definitely like having a goal and working towards that, being focused towards that. When I started studying law, I saw that a lot of my other students didn't have those skills so much. And I think as a dancer, it's so natural that you don't even realize that you have that as a skill. Yeah. And yeah, it's valuable for anything that you will decide to do.
Erik, what kind of skills do you see with your dancers that they can also use somewhere else?
Well, what I think, what you just mentioned, the perseverance and the not letting go and go for it, that is something that we see with dancers. But also being very precise. We have now a few ex-dancers working in production department, and we see that all their work is impeccable in the sense that we don't have to check it. It works because they also see the processes behind touring or performing, or this is something that we don't have to educate them in. So this is very, very helpful in an organization. Yeah.
If Scapino hires people outside of the dance department, is that something you consider? Like, oh, they are ex-dancer, that's beneficial for the team?
Yes, of course. This is something that we take in consideration, but not necessarily is that going to be the argument to hire someone. Of course, it depends on different aspects, but if someone knows what it means to be a dancer, that is something that could be very helpful in a job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just had a conversation before the break about transferable skills. I'm not sure where you are. What are other transferable skills? Oh, let me come to you, because we just had a talk about that maybe dancers are not always aware of the skills they have that can be beneficial in other jobs.
Yes, so the conversation we had was a little bit more about like if we can be proud of being a dancer. And the conversation before the break gave me a little bit the feeling that we have to apologize ourselves for being a dancer, and it's better not to say that we're dancers. Then Jos and I had a conversation about this, and we agreed that I didn't understand fully and that he was not explicit enough. So one of the things I think is very striking for dancers, and I teach workshops all over the world, and I work with dancers. I just returned from Los Angeles, and the youngest dancer was 18 and the oldest dancer was 56. And they were all working on their skills as dancers and to do a sustainable career in dance. And some of the things that I notice is that dancers are not so aware yet of the multiple skills they have on social aspects of working. Like social aspects in group, like you work often in groups, how you deal with group dynamics, how you find your individual voice versus agreeing with the group, dealing with external feedback, dealing with judgment, your own judgment, other people's judgments. They have to juggle that all the time whilst they're being exhausted. So those are amazing skills that dancers hone.
Thank you. Jos, to get back to that point, can you imagine that there was a little confusion or a little shock about, oh, wait, can I not be a dancer anymore? Or do I have to forget about that?
Yeah, I realized that after all the questions came up. I think I should have defined the word identity a bit more clearly, because everything that was asked and said was true. But let me just make it very clear. I think I did mention it just before the break, but I think there's nothing that dancers cannot do in their new career step, because if I speak, and there's some HR people here, if I speak to HR managers, not in all fields, some fields have very specific required knowledge and skills and certificates, but in many fields what HR and recruiters are looking for is people with reflective skills, communicative skills, teamworking skills. Well, you just said it. This is what dancers do all day, every day. It's about leadership and followership, about being able to deal with sometimes harsh feedback and survive in a competitive climate. This is everything. These are the 21st century skills, how some people call them, that I think almost every employer is looking for. So I think you can be very confident that you'll find that work, whatever it is, because there's so many transferable skills as a dancer. I think the big thing is making them explicit, because people might not realize. I mean, if you have an HR person who's a former dancer, they will know this. If not, they might not have a clue and might even be biased against it for some reason because it's unknown. But there's a big trend also in the Netherlands about a skill-based labor market, so we're moving away from the CV slowly and going towards more of a skills passport. I think this is a wonderful opportunity for former dancers to showcase all of these skills.
Yeah. And Mirjam, I see you nodding as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with the team player aspect. So in IT, there's a lot of working together, and this is what you've learned as a dancer. Hey, you work in a group, and you try to make a choreography together. This comes very natural to dancers, I think, in the workforce.
Erik?
Well, I followed two dancers that left Scapino and they transitioned into a new career, and things that I got back, and this is I could relate to it because I made a transition into the cultural field, is as being working as a lawyer, like emotions were not in play. There was no, you had to leave your emotions at home. Basically, that was the rule. In the cultural field, emotions are much more important. Of course, being a dancer, giving yourself, and emotions are involved, and that is something that could stand in the way of a successful career afterwards. Because if you take this, let's say, this drama to another field, a work field, then you might have to adapt a little bit.
But I think showing a little bit of yourself in the work floor helps for the team.
Of course.
You have to
also pros, but it could also backfire.
I agree completely.
A bit. Yeah.
Ingetje, is that something that you recognize? You come from the law world. That's my assumption, but
I'm generalizing, eh?
yeah, I know. We all are.
No, yeah, I think it's also important, also in law and also in my work now, to use the emotion. In situations that you get angry, of course, not to express that anger as a shouting, but it is also a signal that something is unjust what is happening, and in that sense, I think I do use my emotions also outside of the dance world.
Jos, is that something that is changing also through time? That maybe in the past emotions weren't as much accepted at the work floor as they are nowadays?
Yeah, I do think it's changing, but at a very different pace in different industries. Like in law, for example, I think it's one of the more traditional areas where it's less common, but I think across sectors we do see, well, things also, which is not necessarily emotions, but things like work-life interactions, like people caring, not just about always being at work, but, caring about family, for example. I think it's becoming more common to speak up about that. I think companies are taking it into account more often, but it's also a kind of a long road. So I do think that sometimes it can be good to take into account these scripts that exist, although that can also backfire. So we do know from a long tradition of psychology research that if you engage in what we call emotional labor, so acting certain emotions or pretending that they're not there, that can also lead to serious mental health issues if you do it too long. So maybe then that world would not be the best place.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe for some it is, but I can imagine that if you're very emotional and you're in a world that kind of prohibits that, this fit might not be entirely there.
Yeah, it's finding the best fit. I have another thesis I want to put out there. The responsibility for a dancer's second career or continuing career shouldn't only be on the dancer. Erik, what do you think?
Well, I think, it has to be like a shared effort. I agree on that. But
Shared between who?
between the employer and the dancer. It's a conversation. I mean, maybe I'm talking as the director of a company that has people on the dancers on the payroll, and then you have usually twice a year you have talks about how things are going. Are they going in the right direction? And then you also talk about the future. Probably less with young dancers, but dancers that are approaching the 30s or 35 years of age, then you start talking about this. And then you, of course, we always have the omscholingsfonds, but it's something that comes up in the last years more than it used to come up in the conversations with dancers.
And why is that? Why did it change?
I think the omscholingsfonds is one of the reasons, because we have this structure here. There is help that you can ask for, and maybe that makes the conversation a bit easier. Also for the employers, because we don't have to come up with the solution by ourselves. There is an institution that can help and that has a lot of experience in that field.
Yeah.
Yeah. But mainly, of course, it's the responsibility of the dancer, of course.
Ingetje, do you also feel it that way?
Yeah, I think the dancer needs to open. You have to, as a dancer, you have to open your vision to dive within yourself, to see where you want your path to be going. But as a employer, I think you have a big role also in helping in that discussion. I also now with my boss, I also speak about my career and the future of that and how I want to develop that. And of course, as a dancer, that's a different conversation.
Mirjam.
Yeah, but if you then think of freelance productions, I cannot imagine that the freelance companies, productions, can take care of what is happening to the dancers afterwards. They have already enough difficulty with having enough money to get the production on stage and having enough performances. So then it's great that there is an omscholingsregeling. So yeah.
Well, also because I hear a lot of great skills that come from dancers. I moderate quite some conferences, and in every world I come nowadays in these weeks, the main concern is people. We need people. can there also be Jos, a responsibility more at the government or at future employers to get these wonderful people with wonderful skills out there in the field?
Definitely. I think, I mean, this is one of the reasons why I emphasized context, right? It's also supply-demand dynamics at the labor market. If you're in a time of shortage, when there's more jobs than people, the initiative lies with the employers. They have to brand themselves. They have to recruit people and lure people to them. This is a time we're currently in. So I always try to tell my students also, they're really nervous and they say, I got this offer, now I have to take it. I said, do you like it? Not that much, but at least they found something. I said, they should be very happy to have you. And I think the same applies to all the dancers that go into a new role, especially in a time of shortage. It's not just that you should be happy that someone is willing to take you on. They should be very happy that you're willing to use all those talents to be there, because many people with so many skills can choose.
Yeah.
And I know this is a selective sample, because in a meeting like this, we invite people who can give examples of how they succeeded. But I think there's already enough really beautiful examples of how you can make it work in very different ways after the dancing career, to speak it in those terms. So,
anyone here ever approached on LinkedIn or whatever for a job? I don't think so. Huh?
But are dancers active on LinkedIn? Is it like the platform?
Are there any dancers
I don't know. I know
that
some
are active
businesses
on
are really
LinkedIn? What? Yeah, quite a few. So what? Do you use it? Do you use it for your other career outside of dance? You plan events. You're still a dancer, but do you use it to look around at companies, see what is out there? Maybe I can go to a law school day. Maybe. You will. Other things? No, it's interesting. I mean, yeah. On LinkedIn, I can imagine that there are quite some companies that would be very happy with dancers. Therefore, also this thesis, every employer should be glad to have a dancer on their team. What do you think, Erik?
Well, the type of skills that dancers in general have is something very important to have in a team. That I'm convinced of. Can a team be successful without a dancer? I'm sure also.
That's quite strong, but yeah.
But to have this specific type of skills within your team could be very beneficial. Yeah.
We, of course, had HR here. Sorry for branding you that way. You already pointed it out. What do you think? Everyone should be happy to have a dancer on their team?
I should say yes in this environment, though. Yeah, no, it's hard to say in general yes, because it is an individual something. But if we talk in general, yes, I would say yes, because it can bring a lot to your company.
Some hands, yeah.
Thank you. Yes, it's a thought that came before already, and now hearing this thesis again, it does put a big target on the dancer's back. In terms of like, you know, we hear, oh, but the dancers have great skills. They're going to succeed anyway in whatever they do. I'm like, I developed my skills, whether soft or hard skills, whatever, in a dance environment. So I'm a team building player in a dancing environment. I am goal driven, I'm resilient. But that's what I know. It's about dance. So to hear that somebody wants to recruit a dancer because they're a dancer, well, that's also quite impactful of a person that wants to approach a new career. So I wanted to ask you, like, for example, how was it for you in your change? Did you feel this pressure, or like, were you, oh yeah, but you're a dancer, you're for sure gonna do good at that? Well, I can also fail maybe, you know, if it's outside of my sector.
I'm from Introdance. I'm very proud to have Alberto on the team, and I think it's very important that we really want him on the team because he's very good in his job. And he's a dancer, but he's really good in his job. So that's very important.
Thank you for that. But yeah, to get back to that point, there's maybe also some pressure. To talk about pressure, I think... Can I speak in general to say that dancers are used to striving for the highest We want a beautiful aesthetic picture on stage. We want a very high level because there's huge competition. What role does that play in other careers? Mirjam.
Competition in so.
Well, do you feel that you always have to strive for the highest, like to step that stairs, to take another step on the stairs?
In dance, for me, it was very extreme. So you have to be really, really good. And in the world I'm in now, you do your best, but it's not constantly like you have to show everything constantly. So that's really nice. It gives some stability and continuity.
Yeah, Ingetje.
Yeah, I think when I started law school, I did start law school as I did my dance career, and that made it really competitive for me. And in the beginning, in my work as well, and I really had to kind of make a shift also to see work also more as. Maybe that is the idea of that it's sustainable, that you cannot always, be on your premiere mode, let's say. And because as a dancer, also when I was freelancing, it's so much, you really work towards a premiere, and then it's kind of, you have this kind of waves now in your work. And as a lawyer, it's just, if you approach it like that, you just always stay there. And you have to find a different way of or at least for me, I had to find a different way of working with this kind of pressure that you put on yourself to strive, because you want to, get the most out of it.
Are there any questions to these people here? Let me get up there. Great exercise.
Maybe also an observation, because we're talking a lot about transferable skills and skills in general. I hear an amazing amount of skills that we all possess as dancers. I feel like we're missing out on one of the most key ones, and that's the creative skills, creativity, especially now in the world where we are going, like Jos already said it, that we're going more towards the skill-based resumes and portfolios, and creative skills are very important these days. Now maybe a question for you too then. Do you feel like you had any creative skills that you could kind of convey in your job right now? I mean, I guess into like IT, like coding, it requires some creativity as well. Maybe inside law, or did you connect any of those?
For me, I feel in IT there's a lot of creativity. You really build something, you really make something, some functionality that wasn't there before. And that really, that makes IT very nice. I really like that about IT. It's not just about meetings and talking with each other, but you really have a result and something that might look really good as well. And you can show to people like, yeah, this form, it's just a form on the website or something, but you build it, it's working, and you really create something. I like that about it.
Yeah, I also see my work in that sense as creative. Maybe it's not as expressive. That's, I think, a lot of people, when they think about creativity, it's about like expressing something. And of course, that is something that, it looks really different in my work now, because my expression is now speaking with other people, sometimes maybe presentation, but it's in that sense not expressing this deeper thing that's happening inside you. What is your art as a dancer? But I think for me, law is very creative. I mean, you create new text, you create new connections. But it's a different form of creativity.
Maybe that's the skill right there, because I think a lot of people might think, IT or law, it's kind of, the same old, kind of boring, but you see the creative side of it. Maybe that's because you were a dancer and you're better able to see the creativity. Which is kind of nice, right?
Hi, I just wanted to have super good, by the way, Wouter, what you said about the creativity. I think that is very important that we bring it back to the conversation. But I wanted to reflect also about the skills that we were talking and what Giuseppe was speaking about, that fear that dancers have about failing. And I feel it myself. I feel it now more than ever. Even if, thank you for the people that has trusted me and they say like, okay, you are going to be fine. I believe it, but with myself, there are moments that you doubt it. And I think that where I also want to ask to many people that they are here, that they are not dancers, and that you have people that they are making this transition, is how you talk to the people that they are in that moment. I remember when I first started to work with Paul and with Lieke, I think that they were people also that they started to take me very, very bloody serious from the very moment that I said I want to become a marketeer. And that is very, very important. We are very insecure, and all of you have, in that moment, you are very vulnerable. And there is very few people that they dare to talk to you as an adult and listen to you. And that is very, very crucial for development and takes away all the wall. So please, for the people that you are going to be with, that people in that transition, do that.
Thank you for that. I see a lot of nodding to that point.
I just want to add to Alberto about doubting. When you're open in doubt, it's actually a very positive thing. Doubt is not necessarily negative, because you're still open to search what would be the right thing. So doubt as a positive, being open.
Can I just add one thing here? Because I think it's really important what you're saying there. Because I think to many outside people, also the people hiring you later on who don't know dancing, they will not expect you to be so insecure. Because what they see of you is this performer who's on stage showing like really high-level skills, being among the best at what they do. I don't think they would naturally expect you to be very insecure. So that's why, coming back to your thesis about is it a shared responsibility, and maybe omscholing can play a vital role there as well. Recruiters, HR, they need to also know about this so that people know that you're not just all really confident, super skilled people. You're just people who are very insecure that you're going into a very new direction, and conversely help you to build that confidence. Because I think there's a lot to be confident about, but I actually didn't even fully realize it until hearing all these examples as well. So this is really crucial that people realize this. I wouldn't have expected it.
And I think it's also important to notice that we're talking about people that dancers that do reschooling and are being hired by a company. But I see from the recent cases from Scapino that people get themselves a freelance practice. So they have to invent their own practice by themselves.
Yeah.
So it's not that everybody is joining a company. I see a lot of former dancers, for instance, physiotherapists. They start their own practice. So many dancers are looking for a more independent course.
Yeah. So to summarize all we heard so far, which is quite a lot. I think what we heard is that a second career can be as fun as dancing, but it's a little search. And that is okay. And also to be insecure about new steps and what skills you are bringing. And that it doesn't always have to be at the high level you are used to work, that you are allowed to fail and to explore. What am I missing about this conversation? Other points?
Use your creativity.
Use your creativity.
Well, and what I think is very important is that you have to be in control, in the sense that you should not start thinking about it too late. You should start thinking about this transition way before it really has to happen. So that you're not forced to make decisions that you would not make in case you would have more time.
Yeah, and maybe within creativity, with a lot of openness, just play and just go to a class and discover that it's not your thing. Or go to a class and decide that you love certain aspects of it. And try out a new job, try out new skills along your dance career. I really want to thank you all. Jos, Ingetje, Erik, Mirjam, thank you very much for being here. We will give you a little moment to digest with some beautiful dance. We have here the National Ballet Junior Company, and they will perform Tume Monk, choreographed by Kirsten Wiklund. And she asked her dancers to connect the typical official classical ballet movements with their own feelings and their emotions. The two individuals we see express and contemplate the overwhelming sensation of love and also the torment of its absence. Tu me manques, French for I miss you, or more literally, you are missing from me. Let's have a look at Bo Ansel and Robin Park. Bo Anzel and Robin Park from the junior company of Het Nationale Ballet. Thank you very much. So, that was beautiful. I used to be a dancer myself as well. I never did this. That's pretty amazing. But I was a dancer at the International Dance Theater for 13 years. And that was an amazing job. I had a permanent contract, and every season they would get like 2 or 3 choreographers from somewhere out in the world. I work with Maoris, I work with people from Cuba, I work with people from Eastern Europe, and everyone would come in and they would learn us their skills. We did like 100 performances a year. I got a salary every month. It was amazing. And of course, I knew at some point it was time for my omscholing, but you never really know when that moment is until we got some financial problems. So that caused that everyone in the company was fired, all the dancers, all the musicians, everything except the director, I think. And that I had to audition for my own company again. So I didn't have that permanent contract. And for me, that was the moment to go into my omscholing. What happens then? Of course, you go to Paul Bronkhorst. And we had a talk. And I had an idea because I figured that I never ever wanted to leave theater again because I love theater so much. But I also knew that it was a very insecure job, and I also really wanted to have a normal payment. So I chose 2 paths, which was marketing communication and acting. And that time was a super luxurious time because I had all the freedom to focus on studying, focus on learning new skills. I didn't have to worry about if I would get my money because there was some payment. And trust me, you will never ever have that again after you quit your omscholing, that you have such a luxurious time to really just play, be open, explore what you want to do. So after the initial studies I did, which was one side, a lot of acting classes, and the other side, 2 diplomas in marketing and communication, I had to make another choice because I could do one more thing. So I was telling Paul, like, yes, I would love to take more acting classes because I really, really love that. But I know it's more clever to take communication direction. And he said, I see that your eyes start to sparkle if you talk about acting, so I think that is what you should do. In the meantime, I sort of have a jigsaw puzzle career. So in the last 13 years, because I'm a non-dancer for 13 years now, I worked in a pop-up shop, I was a commercial model, I was a business sales assistant at huge expos internationally, where I sold barn equipment and infrared heating panels. I worked as a presenter, I already did that for a long time. I worked as a producer and an editor for television. There are 2 of my documentaries still on Videoland. I had a YouTube channel with recipes, a voiceover, and in the meantime I did some acting. And now I'm a moderator. I do this like 4 to 5 times a month in very different places, and I'm also still acting. And I'm so happy that Paul said that just go for what you love and what makes you happy. And in the meantime, trying everything out, I puzzled together a career where I am still working in theater every now and then, and I love that so much, where I also make a very decent payment, I think 3 times as much as being a dancer. But yeah, that little detour and that exploring can do the trick. I'm working now in teams, working towards an end product, which is showtime, and that can be a conference or a film. And that's what I loved about dancing, working together. And I figured out that I didn't like the whole physical part, like the whole body part. So I do a yoga class every now and then, but I don't sport anymore. I'm very happy with that. So yeah, some people made jokes about me like, oh, are you working for free again? Or, yeah, you still don't know what you want to do. But I'm super happy now. And I think I'm happier with my career at the moment than I was with my dancing career, which feels weird to say that. But I puzzled together something that I love most. And that's a combination of things. And that is fine. So that's my story. Movie I shot last week, and my dancing career, being a salsa dancer. We're going to do something new here today for the omscholing dancers, because for me it was very inspiring to hear stories from others about how you do your omscholing and what you choose and how you choose what you want to do. So the Omscholing Dancers is starting a podcast. And today, you will witness the live recording of the very first episode of that podcast. And yeah, we heard his name several times today. Quite a lot. Paul Bronkhorst. In 1986, he became the face and for many dancers, the conversation partner of Omscholing Dancers. That was for almost 40 years, that is now. He has been the face of omscholing. He was just knighted by the king. He received a ribbon for all his beautiful work. And now it's time to retire and to head off to Curaçao. Of course, the very first guest of the very first podcast of Omscholing Dancers, Paul Bronkhorst. So, Paul, how is today for you so far?
Is this working? Overwhelming. At the same time, I've been hearing these stories my whole career. And that's what made my job a lot of fun. Not necessarily the situation where dancers were in, but knowing that I would be able to sort of at least try to support them into a new direction.
Yeah.
That is the most satisfying part of my job, I think.
Yeah. Let's start with Omscholing Dancers Nederland. Can you briefly describe what Omscholing Dancers Nederland does? Briefly, yeah.
Briefly. In the most simple version, it's two things. It's offering career guidance to dancers who have questions about what they want to do as dancers or after their dancing career. The second thing is giving them financial support once they've figured out what they would like to do, and in that way provide them the opportunity to really bring it into practice.
Yeah. And why is it important that that happens?
Yeah, that was quite funny. You mentioned just when you had your talk, you mentioned the word luxurious, which has always been a surprise to me. Luxurious in terms of, okay, you give people the freedom to re-educate themselves and find a new way in life. At the same time, what I realize, it's a normal labor condition in a way. Dancers do not make that much money that they can set money aside to create the situation for themselves. Dancers is a profession where at some point you will have to choose a different path. This is not necessarily something you do voluntarily, especially those dancers who have started at a very young age. It has been said already, also before, that as a dancer you start at a young age, you identify yourself completely with what you're doing. There's a really fine line between who you are and what you do. You can even question whether this exists. I heard Jos say how to handle this identity issue. I think one of the issues that I missed in this discussion is you can feel pain and you can mourn about that, and there's nothing wrong with that. So feel grief and take the time to do so. One of the loopholes of making a career transition, for instance, is that if you are used to working so hard as dancers do, you want to get rid of this career transition, or you want to get over this career transition as in the same pace, at the same speed. Forget that. You need time, and take your time. And in that sense, I don't think it's a luxurious thing.
It's an essential thing.
It's an essential. I think it's a normal labor condition in a way. Just like we were talking about retirement, I'm very happy. I received my first pension yesterday in my bank account. That's a bit weird. If you open the webpage and you see it standing on your
bank account.
Yeah, exactly. It's a weird experience. But anyway, this is something you have been working for your whole life, and I think obviously you can deserve that. And I think that's the same with dancers, but they still have an enormous career in front of them. What we see is that the general career, let's say, is getting longer and longer. Younger generations retired when they were 65. I retired when I'm 67. So the end of the end of a career is postponed in a way. That is not the case with the average age that people stop dancing. That's still around 34. So it's becoming more and more important to prepare for that second part of your professional life in a way.
Yeah. So you are retiring now. Talking about that mourning process, is that also for you the case? Are you mourning the end of your career?
In a way I do, yeah.
Or are you celebrating? It can also be.
Well, it's a bit like, that's also the case with, sometimes I talk to dancers and they feel guilty that they don't feel pain, or they feel relieved that they can make a career change. That happens when you're working in a company with really tight rules and you have this 24/7 schedules, then it is really legitimate to feel relieved and take another path. And it's always this mixture of feelings that you are confronted with. It's the same when you lose somebody in your life. When you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend and you split up, you can feel relief, but at the same time feel pain.
Yeah.
In a way, I've made that comparison before. When you quit dancing, it's like saying goodbye to your girlfriend or boyfriend. And it's normal that you don't have another boyfriend or girlfriend the next day. At least sometimes the cause may be, but okay, that's a different story.
But that's an interesting comparison. And also maybe that boyfriend or girlfriend had some good points and some points that you maybe didn't like so much.
True,
about
very
them.
true, yeah.
Interesting. When you started at Omscholing Dansers, like almost 40 years ago, you were a career advisor. What was your connection to dance?
I didn't have any connection to dance, at least not immediately. Now you mention that, because I was struck by Jos, who was talking about the difference between a career and a loopbaan. I was trained, as we call it in Dutch, beroepskeuzeadviseur. As if you could help, and beroepskeuze, if I would translate it in English, would something like be like you help somebody to choose a profession. That suggests that if you do one profession for the rest of your life. Now that has changed. People have done my education, they are career coaches, so they're loopbaanadviseurs. And it has much more respect for the phenomenon that Jos explained.
Yeah.
And now I forgot your question.
No, I was wondering what your connection was to dance when you started at Omscholing.
When I was working as a traditional career coach in a traditional institution, and we received a letter from Mia van Santen, and she was running what was called the Social Institute for Dance. What she did was trying to improve the situation for dancers, and also helping them when they had to face a career transition, to make the next step into the rest of the world, let's say. In the letter she wrote she wanted to meet someone who was a traditional career coach, and then I had a couple of conversations with her to discuss how she worked and what we were doing, and try to make a comparison, which was really nice. And this was in the phase that the Netherlands Institute for Dance, which existed from 1986 to 1993, was founded, or it was created. And she had already mentioned to me that she wasn't very happy when she would have to move from her own free space, she was working from home, to move in an institute and to work under a boss.
Yeah.
A boss, not a bus.
Boss, yeah.
So at the moment when the Institute for the Dance was really existing, I heard about the vacancy and applied for the job and got it.
Yeah, and so then it was time to watch some dance, maybe, because you had no connection before?
Yeah, well, it's a sheer coincidence, but in the same period I saw the first dance performance with the Dutch National Ballet, which I thought was quite fun.
And there were many after, I think.
Well, there was obviously a point in my life where dance came to me. Dance came to me in a way. Like I said, I saw the first performance. I met Mia Fassante. I met my current husband, so to speak. I know who he is, Bram. So it came together in one way.
It all came together.
Yeah.
So from omscholing dancers, the government is supporting also this career transition of dancers. Why should they do that?
Well, actually, the government is not supporting.
There's no government component.
There used to be government funding until 2009, when I think it's called the General Audit Room from the government told the Ministry of Culture that funding the omscholingsregeling was against the principles of the Wet of de Cultuursubsidiëring. Can you translate that?
So yeah, there's cultural funding for companies, and by also funding the transition of careers of dancers, it would be like a double funding.
Well, they thought that it's a primarily responsibility between dancers and companies. It's a labor condition, so they should take care of it themselves.
Do you agree with that?
Not really. Because when you educate a dancer, and in general, the art schools are the most expensive schools. So if you educate people to become a dancer, you support that quite heavily. Then when you have a vulnerable career, at the end of the career, you can also do something in that area, I think, as a government.
Yeah. So yeah, what would you advise the government for the future? Because they also need the people.
True. I'm not sure I'll be the person who advises the governments, and especially not the government that we are awaiting now. Although I would love to tell them what I think. But let's say overall, I think it's important that they can take the responsibility for the career after a dancing career.
Yeah. In your career, you heard a lot of ideas, a lot of plans, a lot of new career plans of dancers. Have there been things that you doubted?
Oh, many.
Tell us about it.
No, I've been talking to dancers, and when you hear all those stories, you think, I'm not sure that's realistic, but okay.
What kind of things were the things you thought of, oh, this is not realistic?
Well, it's a bit hard to just explain it without relating it to people, and I think the dance world is quite small, so it would be maybe not a smart idea.
Can you point one out? Like a little general?
Where did you have your training as an interviewer?
Omscholing dancers supported me doing that.
Okay. Well, there have many examples. The people, for instance, we have had a number of pilots people who wanted to become a pilot, which is quite an intense and quite expensive.
It's quite a bold plan to become a pilot after a dance career. It takes a lot of dedication.
True. But at the same time, what I want to be careful with is to create a norm where you have to, because it has been said again also here today, dancers who do have lots of transferable skills, they're able to work very hard. That's something they're used to. But then it doesn't necessarily mean you have to have a very high prestigious second career. You can also fail. That is an option, I think.
So do you think then it can be an option to at least try to become that pilot, surgeon?
Yeah, certainly you should do that. Yeah, I know quite a few people indeed who have. I remember a dancer from a company in The Hague. I won't mention any names, but she had already 3 children. And she started doing a very similar university study as Mirjam has done, which I thought was amazing when you are able to do that and then in the end graduate cum laude, which is, I think, amazing.
Yeah.
If you have a family, if you have had a career like this, and then you have to organize that to make it to bring it to a good ending, and then that happens.
Have you also heard stories of people who chose something and along the way they figured out that it was not their thing?
That happens. And again, what I think is incredibly important is to, when you have someone at your desk and talking about a future career, the first and most important thing is to respect people, what they, and the ideas they have. And you might feel that it may not be the right choice, but still people are allowed to figure that out themselves and make a mistake and come back to us. And I remember we were talking about how dancers are used to train everything and to be perfect. I remember a dancer who wanted to become a teacher on the primary school, and she thought she had to really learn all the rules and details from counting and language and everything. So she got really stuck, because that can be a loophole as well. If you wanted to focus too much on the detail, you forget about the big line, let's say.
Yeah, so that is maybe that strive for perfection and trying to aim for the highest, that is not always beneficial when you are exploring new fields.
True, it can be a backlash, true.
Can be a backlash. You yourself, during your career at Omscholing, I bet you also had struggles. I know you would come to our company once a year maybe, and there were some difficult times also at Omscholing. How did you deal with that?
Yeah, there have been lots of difficult times, I think. The thing is that the omscholingsregeling is not me. It's something you do with other people as well. And I'm totally grateful for the support we had from, for instance, at the time the DOD or the NPK, which was the Employers' Corporation, and also the union supporting the existing of the omscholingsregeling. And in that way, it was a shared effort to bring it to a good ending.
To do it together.
It is true, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it is true, it's never been a dull moment with the omscholingsregeling. Yeah.
How do you see the future of the omscholingsregeling?
Exciting. I'm very happy with the team that we have right now. I'm very excited about Brandon taking over. He's doing things differently, which is a bit weird we have been working together now since March. But that's part of the retirement, I think. You have to take a distance, and what he's doing is great. So I totally trust what's going to be.
If you want to say, if you can say one thing to him, what would it be for the coming up time at Omscholing of Brandon? What would you advise him?
I've probably said it already, but stay courageous.
Stay courageous. And what do you want to say to all the dancers that still are looking for a new career?
Stay courageous. No, I really think there's nothing. It's like Alberto said, when you're in a stage like this, you're really insecure. And you should indeed realize you have lots of skills and traits that you have accrued during your dancing career that are very helpful to use in the second career. And what most dancers do not realize, when they started their dancing careers, or the dancing education, they were probably with 40, 50 students in the class. It's quite normal that they end up with 10. And then you go into a company or you build up a career. So you've taken so many hurdles. You're fine in dealing with this hurdle. It's just one of them.
You can deal with this hurdle. That's beautiful. Paul, what did your time at Omscholing bring you?
Lots. I've felt always very privileged to be able to work with dancers. Like I said, the stories we've heard today have been very inspiring, and my job was hearing those stories, which has always been very pleasant. I've seen quite a big part of the world through the visits we had. I'm totally happy that my colleague from London, Vanessa, is here. So you meet lots of people, and in that sense, I feel very enriched.
Thank you, Paul. This would be the end of this podcast, and yes, you can definitely applaud for Paul. And I want to invite you to stay here on the stage because there are some people that want to say something to you. And I will give the word to you.
Dankjewel. Lieve Paul. Sorry? Lieve Paul, dit is een verhaal om je te bedanken voor de belangrijke rol die je hebt gespeeld in mijn loopbaan. En het illustreert, denk ik, wat jij voor vele dansers betekent. Op de Dansacademie in Rotterdam kwam jij ooit in een strak motorpak langs om ons studenten over omscholing te informeren. Dat was voor mij niet per se liefde op het eerste gezicht. Ik wilde dansen, niet omscholen. Maar dit is omgeslagen in grote waardering. Want terugkijkend ben jij op meerdere momenten een steunpilaar geweest en een schakel tussen de danswereld en alles daarbuiten. Dankzij de omscholingsregeling heb ik namelijk een masteropleiding kunnen voltooien aan de VU in Amsterdam. Dankzij jou. Jij was degene die mij daarna ook vroeg als bestuurder van de ODN. En ik vond dat een grote eer. Want er was iemand met vertrouwen in mij bij aanvang van mijn nieuwe loopbaan. Dat was jij. Het bleek een goede stap. En heel leerzaam op het moment dat ik nog geen enkel besef had van, en dan komt mijn transferable skills. Of het pad dat ik verder zou gaan bewandelen. Het was ook een lifeline naar de dans. Bij de verzelfstandiging van de ODN liet jij mij vervolgens jou af en toe bijstaan in het samenstellen van het nieuwe team. Nu kon ik in de praktijk zien hoe je een organisatie neerzet en jezelf opnieuw kan uitvinden al bouwend aan je levenswerk. Het was inspirerend om daar deel van uit te mogen maken en daar heb ik veel van jou geleerd. Niet zo lang geleden zocht ik je opnieuw op. En dan luister jij. Jij geeft vertrouwen en je blijft altijd nuchter. Het resulteerde ook in de samenwerking voor werktuigen PPO. Jouw kwaliteit is dan dat je heel veel ruimte geeft. Je bent altijd bereikbaar en we kunnen ontzettend lachen. Als iets jou aan het hart gaat, broeit het soms intern. Dat knaagt dan aan je, maar dan kom je altijd met een oplossing. De vaardigheid om tot een oplossing te komen heb je mij meegegeven en daar ben ik je dankbaar voor. Dus toen ik hoorde dat je wegging, toen dacht ik, oh nee, wat moeten we nou zonder Paul? Die gaan we echt ontzettend missen. Aan de andere kant, we gunnen het je zo dat je daar lekker heen gaat. En je hebt ons zoveel skills meegegeven dat we met vertrouwen en dankbaarheid de toekomst tegemoet gaan. Lieve Paul, ik vind het bijzonder wat jij voor mij hebt betekend. En met mij zijn er nog vele anderen, zoals we straks gaan zien. Maar zoals bijvoorbeeld ook Giuseppe Calabrese, Sarah Reynolds van de Dancers Council. En Paul, dank je wel. Sorry, it was in Dutch.
They are getting down there, Giuseppe and Sarah.
Dear Paul. Just a second.
Yes, we're going to read.
Dear Paul, you've meant a lot to me, and you've meant a lot to so many of us. You've impacted so many lives in this room, but also around the world, right? Because all the dancers that you've touched have moved around the world, and I know they want to be here with you. They're going to send their love through us from the Dancers Council. You set up the Dancers Council with us, so Giuseppe will speak more on that. But yeah, you've impacted us all in so many ways, subtle ways, brought us to thinking about things in a new way, brought us from that singular focus to that more broader view of things, which is no mean feat because we're very vulnerable, fragile egomaniacs, most of us, speaking for myself. We're no strangers to that gut-wrenching, sinking feeling, that drop off the ladder, that
pick me up off the floor bit by bit, and you were there. We cried. Well, I cried. You passed the tissues in all the right moments, in those very elegant ways that you do. You are a dancer. You move with us. You moved for us. And we're so, so grateful. Thank you, Paul.
So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Giuseppe Calabrese. I'm a dancer from Introdance, talking about identity, I guess. And yeah, I'm happy and proud today to be here representing the Dancers Council in this special occasion dedicated to you, Paul. From now on, I'll read. Quite a few years back from now, Paul, together with Sarah and a few dancer representatives, he's the person that gave life to the Dancers Council. He gave us a safe space. We all remember those Monday evenings in the offices of the Omscholing, where we could come together and simply share what our working life looked like. Sharing, creating a common ground that created strength, and goes without saying that you helped us deepening the strength. Together on a journey of empowering dancers, Paul has been a mentor, a guide, a colleague, an ally, but at times also a questioning voice, an external eye when we maybe weren't able to see things as clearly. In our sector, we've experienced good times and less good times. Nonetheless, we stood strong together and kept moving forward. We moved so much forward that today the Dancers Council, thanks to you, takes a stand in the professional sector. And for that, we thank you, Paul. From past and current members, from whoever will join us in the future, thank you. You have left your mark, you have paved the way for us, and we will proudly keep walking on it. To you. And if you come this way, there's a little video for you. We will wait.
My name is Rohan Dunham, and I was a dancer with the Dutch National Ballet. I'd like to thank Paul for his unwavering support over the years, and especially when I decided to quit dancing and pursue another career. Aside from the guidance and the support that Paul gave, I think the one thing that will always remain with me is just how he went above and beyond anything I could have ever hoped for. And really showed how dedicated he was to dancers like myself and giving us, the start that we needed in the next step of our careers. So I will be eternally grateful. Thank you, Paul.
Hi, this is Leslie Imbert, former professional dancer by Scapino Ballet. And Paul, I want to thank you so much for being there since day one as we created the Dancers Council. You opened that space of possibility for us to meet in person. You monitored this meeting in supporting and guiding us through your kindness, through your knowledge, and I strongly believe that your presence and your encouragement for us to keep going was a major aspect in the creation of Dancers Council. And I just want to thank you so much for doing that and for being there for us. Thank you.
Hi Paul.
Nienke.
En Ruben hier van Introdance.
Wij willen je bedanken voor jouw jarenlange toewijding aan omscholing voor dansers, waardoor wij ons in ieder geval geen zorgen hoeven te maken over onze toekomst na onze danscarrières.
En natuurlijk willen we je ook bedanken voor de jarenlange inzet en bijdrage aan de Dancers Council. Geniet nog van wat komen gaat. Doei doei!
Hi, I'm Martin ten Kortenaar. I danced at Dutch National Ballet. I wanted to thank Paul for the years and decades of his life that he dedicated to building the omscholing into a gold standard really for dancer retraining programs throughout the dance world. I also wanted to thank him for his open ears and his wise words, his counseling that he always offered. And lastly, for his friendship. Thank you, Paul, and we'll miss you.
My name is Naira Aguanyan, and I am a dancer with the National Ballet. I want to thank Paul for advocating for our dance community, encourage us to voice our opinions and recognizing our abilities beyond just dancing. Thank you, Paul, for also initiating the Dancers Council. I gained so much valuable insights from it. Your dedication will be greatly missed.
Hi, my name is Josephine Dubai and I'm a dancer at Scapino Ballet Rotterdam. I want to thank you, Paul, for introducing me to omscholing almost 15 years ago or even more. Since then I've been thinking about what will be my omscholing and still not there. But when the time comes, I will go into it with confidence and trust because of, a lot of things because of you. So I want to thank you from me and my colleagues for our future.
I think one of the things that has been incredible about Paul's work and dedication to the omscholing funds and also for the omscholing funds over the years is it really allows you to see the power of what one person can do. And I'm very aware that Paul has an organization with him and that it is not just one person, but it means a lot when one person spends that amount of time actually leading an organization in the way that Paul has and collecting a team of people with him that care so deeply about the work that omscholing is doing. And I think as one person, when you are retraining, being able to see that within an organization also gives you, I will say, both inspiration and courage. And so I also wanted to really express my gratitude to Paul specifically for that and my excitement at where the organization is going in the future.
Hey Paul, greetings from Dutch National Ballet. Antonina,
Louisa,
Jan,
Joey,
and Kira.
on behalf of the Dutch National Ballet, we would like to say congratulations.
We would like to thank you also for your efforts and dedications over the past years. That has meant the world to us in our careers.
We can't wait to have you back in our theater soon. Enjoy Curaçao.
Bye!
Paul, on behalf of all of the dancers, thank you for your dedication, thank you for being there, and thank you for caring about all of those dancers.
I hope you don't expect me to say anything proper right now. It's been an overwhelming film. It's been overwhelming afternoon. It's been said we're moving to Curaçao for a period of time, and after 3 years we'll be back. And I just hope you'll still recognize me.
We will see you back every now and then with a beautiful suntan. I hope you will relax. I want to thank you all for being here, for sharing, and I want to invite you all downstairs in the foyer to raise a glass to the beautiful career of Paul, to the beautiful career of dancers, and an everlasting, sustainable career. Thank you all.